So with Hashem's loving grace, we're going to learn tonight the gate of love. It's the 4th chapter. It's a very important chapter of Orchus Tzaddikim, Ways of the Righteous. And it talks about the different types of love. Like every other character trait, you have a good side and an opposite side. And we're going to learn about the extremes, the extreme good of the right type of love and the extreme opposite, detrimental side of love. Okay, so first the author, he says, that there's so much within the emotion or the character trait of love that's more than in any other character trait. If a person uses love for the bad, then there's no worse trait. But when a person uses love for the good, there's nothing better. So what the author is telling us, this is like uranium, like atomic power. When you use it for the good, you can illuminate a city. And we use it for detrimental reasons, you can destroy a city, heaven forbid. So he says that love all the time, to be good, it has to be subjugated to the brain. The heart has to be subjugated to the brain. And we learned this in 13 Principles of Emunah, Introduction to 13 Principles of Emunah, that the ruach has to be subjugated to the neshama, the brain, the ruach in the heart. Okay, so what happens when love overcomes wisdom? When wisdom should govern the love, when love overcomes the wisdom, the author gives us 7 types of what he calls misplaced love. The first type, he says, he wants to tell us about how misplaced love, it ruins all our deeds. The first type of misplaced love, we're talking about the same types of love. Don't be alarmed when you hear this, but it's a good type and a bad type. The first type of misplaced love is love of one's children. Have you ever seen someone with really naughty children and doing terrible things? The children, you have guests come to your house and kids break things and everything. And the parents just say, oh, that's okay, but they're destroying your living room. Oh no, my sonny, my daughter, they wouldn't do anything wrong. You see, no discipline. So the love, the terrible type of love is of one's children, is when a person loves a child so much and he spoils them because of lack of discipline. And this is terrible. That way, the child has a sense of entitlement. The child grows up spoiled, and the child is a real pain to society. The child probably won't be able to stay married because the spouse can't stand a child like that. Sometimes child very good looking or very talented or very intelligent, and they marry him for those reasons, or the child has money. But when they live together, to live with a spoiled child that grew up spoiled with a sense of entitlement because the parents gave them no boundaries and pampered them unsufferably, never disciplined them, that was a big problem. It's a big problem. Okay, that's the first type. The second type of misplaced love is love of money. And love of money, when a person has negative love of money, but the negative type of love of money, the person will do every single transgression in the Torah in order to amass more money. What happens? It says, the Torah says that one of the first things they ask us when we reach the next world after 120 years on earth is, did we negotiate fairly? And then negotiating fairly, the Gemara calls this nasat v'tata b'emunah, negotiating in emunah. Why does the Gemara use negotiating in emunah as a term saying negotiate fairly, negotiating honestly? Because if a person doesn't have emunah, a person can't possibly negotiate honestly, because when a person has emunah, a person believes that his or her income is going to come from Hashem. So in order to get the best possible income and to have every blessing on every dollar or on every pound sterling, to have every blessing, then have to go according to Torah. Because when something is done according to Torah, according to Hashem's law, no matter how great or how little you make, it's going to have a blessing to it. And when someone could make billions of dollars, you say the biggest billionaires, they have billions of dollars, and they've lost billions of dollars in divorces because they don't do business according to Torah law, and their money doesn't have a blessing. So it's not the money you have, it's the blessing you have. So to have a blessing on the money, we have to use our money properly and according to Torah. When a person has misplaced love, he will use his money in contradiction of Torah, while transgressing Torah, And rather than doing good things, they'll be doing that. Money has got transgressions, that money has a spiritual stance to it. And no angel could come near that money, and there won't be any blessing for anything done in that money. Okay, the third type of misplaced love is misplaced love of the opposite sex. When a person has a misplaced love of the opposite sex, all judgment goes out the window. Against all Torah goes out the window. They can't see Hashem because their bodily lust overcomes them. They don't care if the object of their lust is a married individual, not a married individual. They want that person, and they want to do what they want. Not only that, they don't care if the object of their lust is permissible according to Torah, not permissible according to Torah. The Torah forbids same-sex relationships. They don't care. They don't care. It doesn't matter. No, they have a right. This is what they want. And this override. They make a whole ideology. And this is what happens in the world. When people, because of their misplaced love, they make a whole ideology to justify their misplaced love, and that overrides Torah. In other words, you see this in Israel right now. We have the left, and the left says, no, the Torah, this is they want to bring us back into dark ages. This is the way they say. The Torah law is bring you back in the dark ages. And it's something terrible. When we know why we don't have Mashiach, we can see it. This is the same attitude in the UK, the same attitude in Canada, the same attitude in liberal USA. You think that observing Torah is the dark ages. So they say, you can't, as long as you're modern, as long as you're tolerant, let everyone do whatever they want, but behind closed doors, but not make an ideology out of it. We don't make an ideology. Heaven forbid. People make ideology because they have this lust, and they make ideology out of their lust. And that brings us to, but look how many wars. We go and count how many wars there were because of misplaced lust between kings and queens and princes and princesses and ministers and of different countries. It can all be traced back to that. Our fourth type of misplaced love is love of parents and family. Now, when have unconditional love, a person has unconditional love of a parent, unconditional love of a brother or sister. Now, maybe that brother or sister, okay, they have in the U.S. South, a tradition of clan feuds. They have this in the Arab countries, tradition of clan feuds. What happens in clan feuds? Doesn't matter if your brother or your father or your uncle, someone from your clan that bears your paternal last name, and they're in a fight, they don't ask they're right or wrong, they're just, they're unjust. No, they fall right in. That's undone. They get wars. And wars. Well, wait a second. Maybe your father or your uncle or your brother is in the wrong. Maybe they've done something wrong. Why not ask a local judge? We learned our seventh Noahide law was to make a court system. Okay, but this misplaced love of parents and family, it usually denies the seventh Noahide law of a court system. And they don't care about a court system. They take the law into their own hand. It's if there's somebody went against my clan, that's it. It's war. And they make war. And they take unconditional side of their clan. That's a fuse. They listen to the advice, which was another example of unconditional love. When a parent gives advice that goes against Torah, it goes against Hashem's law. And the parent, it's very funny how they contradict themselves. A parent will say, oh, the Torah says, honor your father and your mother. And I say, you got to go to work. You got to help me in a business on Saturday. Father tells the guy to work on Shabbat. Wait a second. If the boy knew the answer, he'd say, you know something, Dad? He'd say, honoring parents, that's the fifth command of the 10 commandments. But honoring the Sabbath, that's the fourth commandment. You also are required to honor the Sabbath. So you can't go against Hashem and expect me to honor you and not honor Hashem. But so many people, the parents, they expect this. Oh, when the Torah is convenient, the 10 commandments are convenient because of the fifth commandment, when it requires a child to honor the parent. No, child does not honor a parent when a parent tells him to go against Torah. We don't honor anyone when anyone tells us to go against Torah, to go against Hashem's will, because Hashem is the king. He's the king of kings. So that's the misplaced love of family. It makes a person deaf and blind, doesn't see what's right. Oh, it's my clan, it's my family, and that's it. Doesn't matter. Maybe sometimes people do this with their government. Well, maybe your government is wrong. Maybe the other country has a fair claim. The other people have a fair claim. And this makes people blind to justice. Okay, that's misplaced love. Misplaced love of parents and family. And we can also add to this, we can extrapolate from what the author is teaching us. Is this a misplaced love of country? For example, if a person, we say, why did the Nazis all go again with Hitler and do what Hitler told them to? If your leader is a Idi Amin or a Hitler or a Saddam Hussein, then it'd be misplaced love to be a patriot under that type of regime. Okay, so our the fifth type of misplaced love is love of longevity. You can say, well, who doesn't want to live a long life? But somebody, when they cherish life more than anything, sometimes we have tests in life, and Hashem tests us. For example, if Isaac would have cherished life, and his father says, okay, Hashem gave me a command that we got to make a sacrifice. And who's the sacrifice going to be you? That's called the Akedah in the Torah. And I said, no, we can't do that. What about my life? And if he had the misplaced love of longevity, his son's longevity, and love of his son, also misplaced love, he wouldn't listen to Hashem. But Abraham did not have any misplaced love. He listened to Hashem. And at the end, it was only a test of faith. For example, we are committed to transgress Torah in any situation where it requires saving a life, except for idolatry and illicit bloodshed and illicit sex. Okay, but if suppose a person is a prisoner of war, and the captor says to the Jewish captive says, you eat this pork, otherwise I'll put a bullet in your head. Well, halacha says that he's got to do it because it's not. But if he tells him, you bow down to our idol, other bullet in the head, he says, okay, put a bullet in the head. So this is halacha. In other words, he's not going to go against Hashem. He's not going to bow down to a false idol. And he loves Hashem more than he loves his own life. That is the proper love. In other words, we don't love longevity where our love of life is greater than our love of Hashem, because this is what we say in the Shema every day. And you should love Hashem with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. That means, and what Rashi says is right there in the Torah, when he explains, he comments on this particular passage in the Shema, and Rashi says, even if someone takes your life, okay, that's our love for Hashem. We love Hashem so much, even more than our own life. So this is the proper love. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But the misplaced love is when someone loves longevity more than anything, and to stay alive, you do every transgression to stay alive. And we give a person to stay alive, he can do 610, go against 610 mitzvahs of Torah, but the 3 mitzvahs of Torah, that means no idolatry, no illicit bloodshed, no illicit sex, outside the context of marriage and marital gratification, no way. Okay, that's not. The 6th type, what the author brings us, is the love of honor and prestige. Avat kavod. This is a really rough one. And a person does things for his own aggrandizement and not for Hashem's sake. When the author's words, he says like this, I'll translate, Avashishi avat kavod, hoevet kavod, lo yemasav l'shem shamayim, v'chol mitzvot shiyaseh, o yiten tzedakah, osek b'torah, b'shal mitzvot, tieh machshavtov kavrato achar shevach kavod. The author says that the terrible thing about this misplaced love of honor is whatever person does a good deed. He gives charity. Now, what do we do when we give charity? What should our thought be to give charity? Be, first of all, to help, do loving kindness to the needy person, to the poor person needs the money. Second, to make gratification to Hashem. But no, this guy gives charity because he wants to be honored. He's going to donate the $1 million for the new wing, because knows he's going to be honored, not because of Hashem, not because of the new synagogue, but he knows it's going to have all these people clapping for him at the testimonial dinner on Saturday night, the Malav Malka. Now, that is the misplaced love of honor, with a right love of honor. We'll get to it. That's love of Hashem. The misplaced love of honor is when a person honors himself more than anything, and therefore, even the good deeds that he or she does, they do for their own prestige. The only thing that people say about them, and people that they raise their kids and say, "Oh, look, my son is this, and my son is a big scholar, and my son's a big rep." Now, you didn't raise the child for Hashem; you raised him for yourself. No, we're supposed to raise our kids, teach them Torah. We do it for Hashem's honor, not for our own honor. Okay, and then we have the 7th type, which is a difficult one. Ooh, the seventh type is the love of pleasure. And the love of pleasure, this is the bodily lust. This is really the area of body lust. We said, well, I mentioned body lust and love of the opposite sex, but these are more so not just love of opposite sex. It says the love of food, the love of drink, the love of fancy vacations, the love of fancy cars. A person loves all these pleasures. And King Solomon, the wisest man, never walked the face of the earth. He says, Ein Adam met v'chatzi ta'avoso biyodoi. That a person doesn't die and even fulfill half his lust. If his orientation is going to be lust, never going to fill it. And the person buys a brand new Maserati. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars a Maserati costs. And it feels so great. Then he sees that his competitor bought a Lamborghini. All of a sudden, his Maserati's not worth a thing. Or else he buys his brand new Maserati. And the first time to the parking lot, somebody puts a scratch in it. Oh, his life is gone because this is this whole life. He cares more about Maserati than anything else. And talk about people with addictions. I love. There's a really true story that Rav Shalom Arush once told me about a guy who he was hooked on cigarettes, and he loved cigarettes more than anything. Well, his son once had a appendicitis attack. This terrible pain, a 12-year-old son, terrible pain. He was screaming in pain. His abdomen was about to blow. And he said that he was screaming. And the wife says to him, take him to the emergency room, take him on, put him in the car. So the father put the son in the car, and he reached in his shirt pocket and had a pack of cigarettes. He thought there was only 2 cigarettes in there. And he said, wait a second. If I got to take my son to the hospital, I'm going to be maybe all night long there. How about be all night with only 2 cigarettes? So it was late at night, and he had to look around for a 24/7 store, a 7-Eleven store where he could buy a pack of cigarettes. Well, by the time he found the store, he wasted another half hour, and he's driving around, his little 12-year-old boy in the back, and he's screaming, Daddy, my. He was screaming, crying. Father's not listening to screaming his son. Son is in agony. And who knows if that intestine is about to blow. And if that intestine blows, his body full of toxin, who knows he's going to live. Father's not thinking about his son, not about his son's pain, not about his son. Hey, Dad, wasn't this child crying? Doesn't this take your heart? No. But the heart is connected to the lungs and the bloodstream that's got this nicotine-free, the nicotine thing. It worried about he's going to be without his nicotine. And the nicotine fix is more than the important love. This is how strong is love of pleasures, love of substances, that people are hooked on substances, and they don't care about anything or anyone, and they're heartless about everyone but themselves. And it's really terrible. And people do anything to fulfill their lust. That's how terrible. And this misplaced love. Like he said, anything, the person's whole mind revolves around the lust. Our mind should be revolving about Hashem and Hashem's misses. So this misplaced love, the author tells us, they're like chains around the heart. Imagine the heart is chained. The heart's got ball and chain. Now the heart, as it is a delicate part of the body. It's a delicate organ. But you take the heart and put ball and chains that the heart can't move, and the ball and the chains without telling what to do. And the ball and chains, that's all the lust. And a person is trapped. And a person, certainly that heart can't fly, can't get off the ground. That heart certainly can't go up and connect with the brain and the soul, and the divine soul, and connect with the Shem, which is that's what we explained. If you go back to the 13 principles of Emunah and you look at the first 2 chapters, introduction, and you see the upward flow of God. This is from bringing everything up. And the downward flow, this is the downward flow when the body takes the soul that's in the brain and subjugates it downward to the heart, and the heart subjugated to the liver, and the liver, that's where the evil inclination is found. And this is the author is telling us, he's giving this the same. You'll see this principle throughout all the classic books, and even in the esoteric Torah and in the revealed Torah. And our author brings it down right here. So these are the misplaced love, that they're chains around the heart. And he says, rather than that, we have to follow King Solomon's advice that he gives us in chapter 3 of Proverbs, verse 6. And this is really, maybe this is why The author called his book Orchus Tzaddikim. King Solomon said, in every way, you should know Hashem. Every part of your life, everything you do with your eating, your drinking, it all should be for Hashem's sake. The way you make money, making a living, and getting married, taking a wife, taking a husband, whatever you do, it should be for Hashem's sake. Once you do it for Hashem's sake, then Hashem will straighten your paths. The Orchus Tzaddikim, this is the ways and paths, the same way like the way and the path. Hashem will straighten your path. And when a person has a skewed path, gets into trouble. When a person has a straight path, it's the straightest way to get close to Hashem, because the closest thing is a straight line. And the closest thing between our hearts and connected with Hashem, that's the straight path. And this is what the book is teaching us, the ways of the righteous, the straight path. Okay, so we talked about the negative types of love. Let's turn the coin around and make the discussion positive. And now the author brings us the positive types of love. Now we know the negative types and positive type. And one thing that Rashi teaches us that a measure of positivity is 500 times stronger than the measure of negativity. So if we take the negative side of a character trait and we turn it around, we do a spiritual Aikido, and we take this momentum and turn it to a positive side, it becomes 500 times stronger. And this is really the encouraging. So don't be disappointed. Even if you see, you can identify that maybe that something in our lives, we can certainly see ourselves in some of the negative traits, that we do have negative traits. That's what we're here for, to correct ourselves. Don't worry. Rabbi Nachman said that if you believe you can ruin, believe you can rectify, okay, we're not going to rectify. So in the second half of chapter 4, the author gives us now the positive types. And hold on, we have a really treat in that's actually the second third. The first third is negative. Now the second third is positive. And in the last third, the author, who was not exactly a contemporary of the Rambam, he was a little bit later in the Rambam, he goes through and he tells us how we should properly eat and drink. We have a whole health course in the last third of the chapter that Bezrat Hashem we're going to go through tonight also. Okay, so the proper love of sons, first the author says in the original Hebrew, Avad banav tiel derech zu shiachshov ladrich banav b'darkei hamishpat u'lamda maaseh avodah Hashem baruch hu. That the proper way to love our children is to educate our children in the ways of Torah. In other words, if we have any personal opinions or some bad habit that we got from our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents that don't go according to Torah, not say this is the way we do it in our family. No, the way we do it in our family is according here. Now we may have custom. There's difference between Ashkenazi custom and different between Sephardi custom. Sure, we go to custom, but both customs go according to Torah. Both customs go to Torah. We raise our children according to Torah. That it's not proper to lie, and it's not proper to cheat, and it's not proper to steal, and it's not proper to disrespect people. Certainly not adults. And we go on a public tram or public bus, and there's an expectant mother there, and our 8-year-old took the seat. Come on, get up, give her the seat right there. This is to respect other people, to feel sensitive to the needs of other people. This is what we teach you from a young age. Not that the whole world is about yourself. You sit down, you see this now, and the now generation, the me generation. There's a joke in Hebrew. It used to be in the old time that the new food products, they call them Krim Li and Bis Li. Li means for me. The old type products were like Rugelach and Krepelach, for you. So they said the new generation, for me. It's egotistical. Why? Because parents haven't properly educated them according to the laws of Torah. Loving our neighbor as ourselves. And sometimes we put that before our love of ourselves. And it teaches us to respect other people. Okay, so the proper love of our children is we teach them the laws of Torah. If we're Jewish, we teach them Torah. If we're not Jewish, we teach them the 7 Noahide commandments. And the other, you could look at in our new book, Emunah and the Noahide, and there's a lot of other commandments and maybe another 30 commandments that regulate the relationship between man and fellow man. It's the most wonderful thing you can teach them. Most wonderful thing. People don't teach your kids. What do they teach your kids? That they should love the New York Yankees. They should love Manchester United. This is the education that the kids get. Okay, so they get this misplaced love. And then, they love Manchester United. So if somebody loves Manchester City, that's an enemy. Come on. It's really silly. All right, now that's the proper love of our children. We raise our children not for our own aggrandizement, but for the honor of Hashem, and we teach them according to laws. And this is what we said. This law is so important. There are 4 parchments in our tefillin. In our tefillin, 1 parchment with all 4 written on the hand, and in the head, there's 4 individual parchments. In every single one of the tefillin parchments, it talks about the commandment of educating our children. This is so very important. Our love of children should be educating them according to Torah, because it's educating them according to Hashem's will, and we educate our children according to Hashem's will. This will make the world a better place. You see the whole first chapter in Amunah and Noahide, and explain this is peace on earth, this harmony on earth. If everyone would educate their children, every person that wasn't Jewish would educate their children according to the Noahide laws, according to Torah, that all of mankind should learn. It'd be a pleasure. And if every Jew was educated according to Torah, it'd be a pleasure. But the thing is, a lot of our people, that they mess up on that. And that's why there's haywire amongst us. And the nations of the world, far and few between, can merit the title that our Noahide brothers and sisters merit, that are the righteous of the nations. Because as soon as you uphold the Noahide laws, called righteous of the nations. And if you teach your children the Noahide laws, forget about it. the super righteous of the nations. Because that's the proper love of our children. Now we talk about the proper love of our money. The author says like this: V'avta mamon tiel dersu, yav mamon lema'an asher lo yachmod mamon acherim. Why do we love our money? So that we won't have to covet someone else's money. V'lo yitztech lignov lizol. Why do we love our money? Because when I have my own money, I don't need to steal. And it helps me. I don't need to cheat someone in business. But yeah, I've got my own. V'lo yitztech lekabel tzedakah. And I won't need a handout from anyone. This is what I'm careful about my own money. I love my own money. I love my own money and hoard my own money. But I appreciate that. I love my own money, that my money helps me observe the commandments of Torah. Don't steal. Don't cheat anyone in business. I don't have to have a handout for anyone. Oh, and the author says, we have enough money. We give charity to other people and to worthy causes. And we can help dress and feed the poor. And we can help people that learn Torah. They spend time learning Torah. And we can help doing good in the world. And if a person wants to be rich in order to be a big philanthropist and do wonderful things with money, this is a wonderful love of money. And for a person that has this real desire to be a philanthropist, Hashem said, you're going to be a worthy trustee? Take it. So as a worthy trustee, people say to me, why doesn't Hashem give me $1 million? Well, maybe if you started paying your tithe from $100, you made $100. Did you give $10 to charity? Well, if you're loyal and careful and trustworthy and giving $10 out of $100, now Hashem will give you $1,000. Let's see what happens to that. So $1,000 did. $100 belongs to Hashem. Just imagine, and we talk about this, there's a whole chapter about this in our book, Bitochen, that Hashem be willing to give a person $1 million if the person is trustworthy in giving $100,000 to charity. So if your local city or your local township has a worthy cause and somebody needs $100,000 and Hashem knows you're going to give it, okay, Hashem says you could be the worthy trustee. And look what happens. It's so great. It's so weird when you're great for Hashem, when you work for Hashem. It's like making whatever you do, Hashem's corporation. You be the chief executive officer, the CEO, and Hashem is the chairman of the board, the owner, and Hashem gives you 90% of the income. But the boss, he gets 10%. That's a great boss. All he takes is 10%. You get 90%. You give that $100,000 in tithe, and you keep putting on $100,000 in your pocket. What's a greater deal like that? And it's Hashem loves his worthy trustees. And if a person is a real worthy trustee, then Hashem they'll become a rich individual. But Hashem tries these people on a lower scale. Are they trustworthy individuals in giving their tithe and what they have? And that's why people say, well, I can't afford, I've got so many expenses, I can't afford to give charity. Okay, that's your prerogative. but you're missing out. You're missing out because really it looks at logical. This is spiritual logic. It's not logical logic. Spiritual logic is above nature. So if we want to make more money, we take away our money. It's spiritual logic. I would give money to Torah students. We give money to poor people. We give money to cause to feed people. We give money for worthy causes, for spreading emunah. We give money for all these types. This is, and then you get it back because Hashem wants these good things to be done in the world, and it takes money to do them. And by doing them, you're doing Hashem's work. You're working for Hashem. Okay, Hashem's a great boss. Try working for Hashem and see what Hashem does. Hashem pays back big time, 10 times more. And there's even a higher level when a person loves his money, but still, despite loves his money, loves Hashem more, and he gives up to a fifth. We're not allowed to give more than a fifth of our income, 20%. People give 20% to charity and they're big rollers. Okay, so that is when our love of money is to enable us to do mitzvahs, that we can be honest. We don't even have to think about touching a cent that doesn't belong to us, and we could do good for other people. Now, what's the proper love of the opposite sex? The proper love of the opposite sex is what Hashem commanded us to be fruitful and multiply. This commandment for all of civilization. And we get married in order to have a family. And when there's two mitzvot that are connected to marriage. One is to be fruitful and multiply, and the other is marital gratification, which means that the kiddush relationship stays only between the husband and the wife. It doesn't go anywhere else because it's very holy and very intimate. Very holy and very, very intimate. And this is the proper love. When this is done because it's love, and this love has a holiness to it, and the holiness goes together with the relationship. The holiness enriches the relationship. Wow, there is nothing that lights up the heavens like this love, because this is alluding to Kabbalah. Like I say, we talk about in our Likutei Moran lessons, we emphasize 10 times every single lesson that anything we say about the Almighty, it's all metaphor, that we have our third principle, Emunah. There's no corporal traits, no bodily traits, but the relationship between the divine presence down here and the upper personification of Hashem, which is a Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's like a divine union, and a husband and a wife is a metaphor of the divine union. When divine union comes together, it brings abundance. What happens is the Shekhinah, the divine presence, she becomes like pregnant. She becomes pregnant with abundance, and she gives birth to abundance in this world. Now, how does she get abundance? She gets abundance when she comes together in unity with the higher partsuf, the personification, and it comes together. So the husband and wife, and we say in the bond of Emunah, we talk about in the bond of Emunah that we learn that they're two halves of one soul. So it's really two halves of one soul coming together. And you can't think about that. What's the defilement, a ruination of all worlds, when one half of a soul joins with something that's not the other half of its own soul. That's like, heaven forbid, the dark side overcoming the divine presence. Heaven forbid. People don't realize the ruination. If they knew the spiritual ruination in adultery, so when there's 10 commandments, it ruins all what people look at it, then they wonder why they don't have blessing in their lives. It ruins all worlds. And it's something, such an anathema. But the exact opposite. We said that the measure of good is 500 times stronger than the measure of evil. When we have a holy relationship between husband and wife, it is a metaphor of the divine, the oneness of Hashem. We say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So we talk about in Kabbalah, about these different personifications. We're talking about different limbs within one body. When we look at a husband and wife, they come together. Why does the Gemara tell us? And the Gemara in Tractate Gittin says that when a husband and wife get divorced, that the Mizbeach, the holy altar, cries, the holy altar upstairs, and that we don't have the temple down there, but there's a temple upstairs, and it's waiting to come down. It cries because it's like a soul has been split apart. And so if you know anybody that's thinking about divorce, let them read the Bond of Amunah. They don't realize what they're doing. Hold it. When you realize the damage that is about to be done or the good that you could do, then stop and think about it. We're not talking about something that's some type of pathological thing that can't be solved or whatnot, but it's something that's just an argument that can be passed over. People don't realize what's at stake because they don't understand the divine union. So you talk about when the divine union is manifest down here between husband and wife that have proper love, the right type of love. Wow. And when it's how to educate children, love between mom and dad. When mom and dad have this proper love and there's nobody else in their lives, the kids are going to have a great marriage. But when mom and dad don't love each other and mom and dad don't talk nicely to each other, kids are going to have big problems. And if the kids knew where their problems came from, they'd later go to their lawyer bills and their divorces. They bring their bills to mom and dad. Mom and dad, here, you pay for this. I got these bad traits from you. I'm being a little bit figurative, but that's really what it is. This is the proper love of husband and wife. It just illuminates all the world. It's wonderful. Okay, now we have the proper love of parents and family. Proper love of parents and family, the proper love, the Torah tells us, the fifth commandment, to honor our parents. And we love our children. Why we love our children? Because we love our children. We're going to raise them in the ways of Torah and make the world better than when we found it. And we raise our children according to this proper love, this love of Torah and love of Hashem. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Illuminate, make the world a better place. But when we raise our kids to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and however they want, who knows? It's shot and dead. That's big problems in the generation. And so this also connected with this proper love of families, our proper love of fellow humans. The author says like this. He makes a big statement here. He says, "Tuelet achad b'olam hazeh v'shnei olam haba. Tuelet olam hazeh ki mi shemitneheg ba'ava im kol adam yazeu hakol." A person that loves other human beings has a big benefit in this world and the next world. A person who loves other people and is always willing and helpful to be other people, people love that person. When people love that person, then what's going to happen is that when a person is loved in this world, not because he's politics and he looks for love, when a person is that because he does good for other people, then measure for measure, upstairs, they're only going to do good for that person, especially now. It's now after sundown in Israel. We've just began the month of penitence, the month of Elul, exactly in another month. And another month will be the eve of Rosh Hashanah. That's a special evening. By the way, I forgot to make a dedication in the beginning, but this is on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. The Callan family lost their beautiful daughter 3 years ago, Hannah, and her yortzeit is on Rosh Hashanah. Hashem took her right before Rosh Hashanah started in the afternoon of Rosh Hashanah. So it should be in everything we do in Hannah's blessed memory. Hannah Callan from Midlands, UK. So the author tells us that, and the advantage in the next world is that a person who has loved other people is going to be a peacemaker. And there's no greater vessel for divine abundance than peace. People that loves other people, there they go. You see some people are sadistic. They like to see other people fight. They like to see arguments. They like to see blood. Now, a person loves other people. He can't stand that. He can't stand to see other people in pain. And a person loves other people, do everything to make peace. What Torah tells about Aaron, the high priest, Moses' brother, he was this type of individual, that he couldn't stand seeing a husband and wife arguing. He couldn't stand seeing a man and his neighbor arguing. And he always time made peace, and he loved other people, and they loved him back. And so when Moses died, people mourned Moses, but when Aaron died, the whole country, they mourned for him more than they mourned for Moses, because Aaron was so intertwined with the people and love for every single person, every single human being. Okay, so a person that loves other people, the author says, such a person is always going to speak nicely to the people. He's going to have consideration of the person. He'll be able to have a reader. He doesn't feel himself only. looks at the person, sees another person that maybe has not a good day, and talks to him. I'll never forget what one of my rabbis and rabbinical cemetery rabbi, Yosef Yitzhak Lerner, he learned in the Lakewood Yeshiva. And about 45 years ago in Lakewood Yeshiva, in their kollel, there was a young man that had all types of difficulties. And in a moment of extreme depression and extreme hopelessness, he took his own life. It's something he's not supposed to do, to suicide. When they buried this young man, one of the rabbis of the yeshiva, he yelled at the students. He said, maybe if just one person would have put his arm on a young man's shoulder and said, hey, Moshe, how come you're frowning today? What's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? And maybe he could have vented and talked his heart out. He could have saved a life. We don't realize people, we love other people. Just you smile at another person. You know what it means when you smile at another person? Person looks at, oh, I've got worth. He's smiling. I'm being smiled at. And when you frown at another person, maybe you've got your own problems. This especially in marriage. A husband and wife comes home and they're frowning, and they may be frowning because of an outside problem. But husband, if you don't come home with a smile on your face, your wife says, what's wrong? She look in the mirror. What I did do something wrong? I look wrong. What's it? My husband is upset. No, it's not. When we frown at other people, we take away their joie de vivre. They take away their joy in life. When we smile at other people, we show that they're worth. We give them worth. It could save a life. We don't know. It can maybe by smiling at a person, it could save a suicide. What the Lakewood Rosh Yeshiva taught us. Okay, so now the author says, Shma b'ni, ki ya'aleh b'lavcha litchaber im b'nei adam, yitchaber im chacham. Okay, it says, when it comes time to making your own personal relationships, be nice to everyone, but in your own personal relationships, make relationships with people that you can learn from, people that can be personal examples for you, people that are smarter than you, people that maybe have good characteristics, that you can learn from their generosity, learn from their kindness, learn from their wisdom, and be careful with hanging around with the wrong type of people. Okay, and it says, be very, very careful not to hang around with wicked people. Okay, now he talks about the proper love of longevity. Our proper love of longevity. Why do we properly love longevity? Love longevity because every moment is a chance to serve Hashem. Every moment is a chance to do mitzvahs. The Chafetz Chaim, he writes in the laws of proper speech that one of the punishments when a person talks improper speech is that for every word of improper speech, you could have been saying a word of Torah. And a word of Torah, every word of Torah gets a reward that is unfathomable. You can't understand it. You have no idea what our learning together for an entire hour, every single word we learn together. It's not just me saying it, it's you listening and learning. It's like every one of us is saying these words. I'm just a representative for our whole group. It is unbelievable. And the subjects we're talking about Amunah, we're talking about ethics. But this is the most important thing. And just think this is, if we take how terrible slander and evil speech is, and we take the good type of speech, it's a 500 times stronger. So what one word of learning Torah, not 1 sentence of learning Torah, 1 moment of learning Torah, 1 minute of learning Torah, an hour of learning Torah, off the charts. And this is the proper love of longevity. When we want time to do good things. We want time to be able to accomplish more. We want time to, there are people that at 38 years lived a whole life, and the people that are 100 years old that didn't accomplish a thing. We see the Arizal and Rabbi Nachman, they lived at age 38, but what they accomplished in their life, fantastic. Then the author goes to the proper love of honor, and he says the proper love of honor is when we worry about Hashem's honor. That it hurts us that so many people are defame Hashem, that there's so much chilul Hashem, so much defamation of Hashem's name in the world. And this is what really hurts us. And our greatest wish is that there should be a sanctification of Hashem's name in the world. And this is what we hope for. This is the proper love of honor. It should be a love of honor. And what's the love of pleasures? The love of pleasures, he says like this. He says, that we have these pleasures in order to get to know Hashem. It's okay to go on an alpine vacation, because I want to go on an alpine vacation. I want to go to the Italian Alps or the Swiss Alps, the Austrian Alps, to see what a beautiful world Hashem created. If I live in some city, some gray city, and I've never seen Hashem's world, and I go there so I can praise Hashem. And then every time I say Nishmat on Shabbat in the morning, and I see Hashem's world, I go to Brighton Beach to see the sea, and I can see the waves of the sea. And every time I say Nishmas, I can understand Hashem, that my words should be like my tongue should be like the waves of the sea to praise you. And it's to appreciate Hashem, to appreciate Hashem's world. And it's a love to appreciate Hashem's world. We have, it's fine, especially we have good food to honor the holidays, to honor the Sabbath. We have good food to take care of our bodies. That we need to be strong to help Hashem. So from the love of pleasures, we take our love of pleasures, that these pleasures are used to serve Hashem. Now the author finishes the chapter with some wonderful health advice. What's the health advice he gives us? Okay, pay close attention. He says, "Yasima libo kedei lafrod gufo v'varav," that everything we do in the physical side of our lives, our sleeping, our eating, our drinking, it should all be to have a healthy body to serve Hashem. And that means whatever we put in our mouth, he says, "Is this for Hashem or this not?" In other words, put a piece of pastry in our mouth. This week, in my neighborhood, a young man, 52 years old, and he passed away, left 8 children, and he was a Torah scholar, he was a rabbi, but he didn't observe these particular laws. He used to smoke all the time, and he was very much overweight. And I was so upset when he died. At 52 years old, the guy was such a nice guy, and he was a scholar. And what he could have done more of it, and maybe he took to judge him fairly, but he couldn't overcome the nicotine, the nicotine fit, whatever. But it's such a tragedy. It's such a tragedy. I don't know what movie they're going to show the young man there. He left a widow, left eight orphans. Look what happened. Look what you could have done. That we say in the Trail of Tranquility that there's 2 movies that a person sees when he leaves the world: what they did and what they could have done if they had lived their lives according to the really way Hashem wants. And so many people, they're religious, quote, unreligious, but they don't pay attention to the Rambam. They don't pay attention to Orchus Tzaddikim, what the ways of the righteous, what our author tells us at the end of chapter 4. He says, you don't eat sweet things because your palate likes them. That's that sweetness. It's got sugar, detrimental. And we're talking about this is something that was written 8 centuries ago. 8 centuries ago. And he's telling us that don't fill your belly up. Don't make yourself unfulfilled. Just what the Rambam tells us. The Rambam says you should be satiated 2/3 and no more, because the stomach is like a washing machine. You don't fill, washing machine has a capacity 5 kilos of laundry, 7 kilos of laundry. You don't fill it too full. Otherwise it won't launder, because the can't be churned. Can't churn laundry. Same thing with the stomach. The food can't be digested if there's not room for it to be digested. So we don't eat until we feel bloated, or we feel indigestion, or have this acid reflux. Acid reflux means that the stomach is jammed full, can't go anywhere. And he talks about this. A person, he says one thing, this is his system. Not everybody could do it, but you follow this system. The person should eat twice a day, that movement should be quick and should be agile. Eat in the morning and eat in the evening. This is type of Mediterranean. And a lot of people say don't eat late at night. But what we do during the day, we eat it in Spain and Italy and Greece and a lot of places in Israel. We eat later at night. After the day's done, eat later at night, sit back, have a Mediterranean meal, glass of red wine, and very healthy. He talks about this is his system also, a Mediterranean diet, and don't eat too much and eat twice a day. And during the day, some fruit, eat some nuts. This is health advice. And do not satiate your lust. No, to be but we eat and drink in order to keep a healthy body, to serve Hashem. And what we do, that everything should be for to serve Hashem, that we should be agile, that we should be strong, and that we should feel good, that we shouldn't feel shame. A person is going to be hungry, a person is thirsty, a person is going to feel anxiety, be stressed. No, you sit back, have time, and don't eat on the run. Don't multitask. Take time at a meal, sit back. What I suggest people during mealtime, close the cell phone. If we extrapolate on the author's advice, close the cell phone. One quality time, you have to eat anyway. So why not close the cell phone? And why not husband and wife have meals together? Have your morning meal together, your evening meal together, at least one meal together, and take an hour. Take an hour. Eat for after that. The Rambam says that a person that our satiation mechanism activates after 20 minutes. So a person could gobble down the same big plate in 10 minutes, won't be satiated. It'll be the second whole big plate. But a person eats slower and chews well. It's not only what we eat and how much we eat, it's how we eat. Also, the author talks about that here. Talks about very similar to the Rambam. I'm giving this telescopic, and the one by word by word, could do a whole 2 lessons on this system of healthy eating. But he says that if a person eats like that, then his eating becomes the service of Hashem. That his eating becomes just like his praying, because he's eating for the good of the health of his body, so he could serve Hashem. Okay. And person says finally, he terminates the chapter, and he says that a person should leave all the loves, all the types of love in the world, and cling to the love of Hashem. That what's the meaning of love on Hashem? How do you gauge when you love someone? Ask yourself how much you think about someone. Either infatuated with the person, or before you asked her to get married, you were waiting for him to ask you to get married, and how much you thought about each other. When's he going to call? When's he going to take me out? When am I going to see him? And then people get used to one another. No, that's not it. But the more we think about one another, the more I love. The same thing about Hashem. Ask ourselves, how often do we think about Hashem? Once a day? Once an hour? 3 times a day? Every moment? Every heartbeat? King David says every breath thinks about Hashem. That he closed the book of Psalms with Kol Neshama Talakah, that all their soul shall praise you. And Rashi says Kol Neshama should be called Neshima, put a yud in every of the whole, all of our soul. And a yud in the middle of soul, that's Neshima, every breath. So what King Solomon was really saying, that with every breath I take, or King David was saying, with every breath I take, I praise your name, Hashem. That is the proper love of Hashem, when our actions are Hashem-oriented, our speech is Hashem-oriented, and we think, even our thoughts are Hashem-oriented. So with this, we conclude the 4th chapter of the ways of righteousness. B'ezrat Hashem, everyone should have a wonderful, wonderful week and a wonderful new year. We look forward to seeing you after Rosh Hashanah, because our trip is going to take us right up before Rosh Hashanah, and it should be signed and sealed in the book of life for the very best year of your life. Amen.